When you hear something and you're like, you hear the word someone's saying, and it makes all the sense in the world, and it's about something somebody needs to do, and we say these words, but that's not me. And maybe we don't say them out loud. Maybe we don't even say it inside our heads, like, well, that's not me. But subconsciously or in the background, we say, well, they're not talking to me. But most of the time, it is us. And that's what we're going to discuss today about how do you tell, how do you know you're not fooling yourself? So it's so important it's time to get real with yourself on, is the words being spoken actually what you need to hear, but you're just putting that resistance, that barrier up. We've often discussed this. How do you get someone that if they were to go back and speak to their earlier self, how do you get them to listen, to reason, to the future self that knows what is good for them? And we're going to discuss that today. And so, does your business own you, or do you own your business? And it's time to get real. Many business owners listening to this, like, oh, that's not me. I totally run my business. All good. I work on it. But you might be the one punching all those emails. You're the man picking up the phone. You're the one you're stressed out. You don't have, that's the indicator that it might just be you. And it's time to take stock. It's time to get real. It's time to stare it down and say, yeah, I don't have that handled, or that handled. Let me take stock and go ahead and just say that I don't actually have what I think I have in my hands. And Sean, if you want to speak to that, I know we talk about it a lot, and we interviewed some high level podcast guests earlier today. They were special people, really really impressed. Can't wait for those episodes to come out. But you asked the question, and they said you can't speed it up. You have to be there at the right time for them, and I think that's the answer. But there's more to it. We're going to dig into that today. But what do you say to that?
Yeah. So when I think of somebody like listening to this right now, it's like, oh, why do we listen to podcasts? Why do we read books? Why do we go to workshops? Why do we go to training? And a lot of times we listen to these things or go to these things because we think we're going to obtain something to filter it in their own life. But then we end up getting this.
Yeah.
Right. We end up getting this. And so myself included, and over the years, I realized I'm like, man, wherever it is in that journey of business ownership, entrepreneurship, you're like, oh, I want more sales, or I want more marketing, or I want more flexibility. I want to learn how to delegate. There's so many different things, skill sets that come with business ownership and entrepreneurship that it can be super overwhelming. So as a business owner and entrepreneur, you tend to focus on things that are going to bring in money, and typically retaining those customers and then providing the product or service in the meantime and figuring it out as you go. Right. And then learning by podcasts like this, books, workshops, training when you have time to pick your head up. And I'm a big believer, and I've shared this on other episodes, and like you said, with guests as well, to a surface level, myself included, it came to a place where 3 years ago, I was like, man, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't have it all figured out. I've done all these things that they just mentioned, and I feel like I'm on the hamster wheel. I feel like I'm on the rat race. I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over, AKA you're working in the business, also known as you're a prisoner to the business. When I had a bachelor party, and I think it was my bachelor party. Was it a bachelor party? Yeah, my bachelor party.
Went to Breckenridge.
Breckenridge. And my good buddy, best man, Ewan Heinemeyer, set it all up together. And it's been a while. It's been six plus years now. Had some really good friends, a part of that crew. The more, I would call them more of acquaintances now, and we've lost touch since the bachelor party and going to Durango. But I remember, man, all of us going, and this was when I was right in the trenches of rolling up my sleeves, and I had some team members on my team, and I remember having conversations with them. Guys, I'm going to be away for 4 or 5 days. You got this, right? Hey, whatever, if it doesn't blow up, don't call me because I'm going to be. And they said, I got you, Sean. I got you. And at the time, I remember thinking, I was like, okay, that feels good, And I had a few employees for 3 or 4 days. They were going to get me, right? So I had delegated, and they were going to replace myself as I went and enjoyed this time with my friends. We showed up to the airport, and a couple other my other friends at the time were business owners. And I remember this one particular individual, the entire trip from start, from the moment I saw him, from the moment I went up and smiled on his face, gave him a hug, from the moment we left, he was either doing emails or phone calls the entire time. And just talking about it is it brings back memories. And I want to I'm just speaking to my younger self because that was me to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And then I saw it in my friends in my friends. I was like, and at the time I didn't really understand it. I didn't really recognize it. I was like, man, something's not right here. If you go somewhere on a trip, ski trip, cruise, vacation, dinner with your wife, like why do we feel like we have to be on the email, on a phone call, or take this phone call to interrupt and go do this, to conduct business? And I never understood it. I was just society always told me, is like you got to do it. You got to make it happen, right? So
Mm.
that was my mentality. It's like, okay, well, I don't know any different. But in getting real in today's episode, if there, in that moment, I was like, this is not right. Like, in order for you to really get outside of your business and to the business not own you, you have to first, that's step one, is go, dang, ego pride dropped. Something's not right.
Yeah.
And so whether you recognize it now or you recognize it later, my hope here at Level Up and Live and what we're doing is to not only help guide, but also to help avoid what every business owner and entrepreneur typically experiences along the journey, which is that unfulfillment, that lack of clarity, that lack of inspiration, that lack of motivation. So if you can be that individual that catches it, at the airport going, you know what? I shouldn't be on my phone. I shouldn't be emailing my customers. I shouldn't feel like I have to be doing it.
Yeah.
You shift the mindset to going, that's not right.
Yeah. Enough is
I need
enough.
to do something about that. Who do
Yeah.
I need to become to get to where I want to go? So I'm not a prisoner to my business, where I don't feel like I'm having to do this, where I can enjoy this with my friends in this once in a lifetime opportunity to go to Durango, Colorado.
And you said it right there, man. If you're at dinner with your wife, or husband, this is a great that's a great symptom to ask yourself. Well, if you're saying, well, no, I don't really need that. That's not really me. If you're having to take those calls, and there's many other instances, but that's one right there. If you have to take the call or you have to respond to that email at that time, it's not structured, or you don't have a plan in place for someone else to have that handled. That's a symptom that your business owns you.
Yeah,
and and I think the fear is, it's fear based, right? Because if you don't respond to that right now, there's going to be a consequence. So you have to, and
sure.
that's no way to live, especially if you're trying to enjoy your life, because that is your life. The moments that you spend and the quality of your emotions and feelings at any present moment is the quality of your life. That's all you got, is your experience. And if you're having to do those things, those are in response to, if I don't, bad things will happen. So that's fear based. So if you're on vacation, taking that call, because if you don't, well, then you're experiencing fear and burnout on your vacation, and that's not what it's for. So yeah, it's just that you saying that was just very clear that it is a symptom. Like, if you need to check in with yourself, if you're not sure if that's you or not, then something needs to change. You can't keep doing that.
100%. It was like our recent guest, I believe Michael McGovern said this on the podcast, and I run this congruent to what I do when I go places. And forward thinking, backwards planning is it's simply as a mindset shift. So
Mm.
somebody can be sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know what, guys? You're right. I'm a prisoner to my business. I'm that guy. I have to do these things. Or you're not that guy. It's as simple as a mindset shift. Meaning, like, okay, I'm going on this trip. Let me forward think the next 3 or 4 days. What is it going to look like? I'm going to get emails. I'm going to get phone calls. These are the possible. This is what's going to happen, right? Typically, based on the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months of running my business. So if you can mindset that shift to, hey, you being the one, the bottleneck that's doing the emails and the phone calls, let's mindset shift for a second and go, you know what? I need to delegate. I need to lead and delegate this to somebody on my team, that one person, right?
Mm.
Or if you don't have that one person, then that's the first sign of, if you don't like that, if you want to have that mindset, if you understand and resonate with that, and you understand that thinking of, I don't want to be a prisoner to my business, then who can you delegate this to? I'm talking virtual assistants. What can you look into? So it's a mindset shift. There's so many options in looking into that, because it's not, there's so many operations that go into running the business. You're going to be a prisoner wherever you go. Birthday parties, date nights with your spouse,
Mm.
vacations. Wherever you go, it's going to be subconsciously on your mind. And
Yeah.
that is a prisoner. And
It
so
really
if you're
stops you
really
from growing too.
exactly.
If you think about it, it stops you from growing because you're always going to be, if you don't change that, it will keep you there. That that won't ever you won't ever be free to think about the next level of how to get away from that, because you're constantly spending all your energy on responding to emails, constantly not having that structure, that process. And so that once you have it and experience it, it then frees you up to then create more, to spiral up, as opposed to staying down in the muck, which is just exhausting. And then that impacts your identity. In the back of your mind, you always know it's always like this. Every time it's like this. And that's demoralizing. Like, you think 10 years from now, am I still going to be doing this? And you can't get you're shifting that mindset you're talking about out of that into, once you do experience, oh, I can be fully free on this vacation. I've got it all managed. I can relax. That builds a completely different identity.
Yes.
It's a step up. That's a level up move to where you're like, now what am I going to do with this time? What ideas am I going to allow to come in to build the business? That is what working on the business is, freeing yourself up to spend time to look at the big picture. If you're always busy, you can't look at the big picture. You can't. So you're going to have to figure out a way to get it done. Side note, when you said, hey, we're going to do this Breckenridge trip, I think there were 6 of us going, and he said, you put it together. I was more than honored, I was the best man at the wedding. And he said, hey, can you plan it? I remember the first thing I did was, there was 4 other guys, me and you would make 6, and I delegated to all 4 of them. I was like, hey, you figure out the accommodations, you figure out the flights, you figure out and I was like, yeah, I delegated. About I checked in about 2 days later. It was a bag of crazy cats. I was like, some hadn't done anything. Some people sent me stuff. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I had to start like just corralling the madness. And I think a couple of guys came through, and one, I think I ended up having to do the thing on my own. But I remember that experience, and I was like, man, I still remember that feeling, having people, getting them to do what it is that you would ask of them to do. It's not easy, right? It's not
It's
easy
a
until you
skill.
figure out how people work, right? Like how you fit them into that vision, and they can have their vision within the vision. But it was very funny. Like I just remember, yeah, there's a lot to learn from this right
Well,
there.
one of the things I want to point out is, when resonating with this, you see, there's a lot of skill sets that come with what we're talking about. To
Yeah,
really remove yourself from a business and to work on the business, you have to obtain a lot of skill sets. And one of those skill sets is delegation, like what you just said. And so you took action by delegating. And yeah, and to some business owners and entrepreneurs, you may be thinking, and this was me, they're not going to do it like me. They're not going to have the sales
yeah,
call like me. They're not going to email like me. They're not going to do the word copy like me. They're not going to do the title. They're not going to execute consistently like me. They're not going to call the customer on time like me. This was
yeah,
all going through my mind. But then I soon realized, I'm like, dude, sure, nobody will ever treat the business and own it like you will, Sean.
yeah.
That's a fact. That's the truth. So, what can I do? What are the controllables here? Well, I can delegate to try to remove myself. Okay, well, what does that look like? They're not going to do it like you, Sean. Okay, but here's the key ingredient if you're listening to this. What do you want your business to do for you? Do you want to be that self employed that does the emails and the phone calls? Cool. Probably not a podcast for you,
You're
right?
right.
If it is, cool. You're clear on exactly what it is that you want your business to do for you. That's step number 1, is get super clear. Because if you are clear as a business owner and entrepreneur in the direction that you're going, it's not if, but when you remove yourself from that email, phone call, the different skills, the different positions in your business. But when you're not clear, Ewan, what happens? You get in the minutia, you get in the rat race of doing the same thing over and over. Listen, when you get so clear on, oh, this is what I want my business to do for me. Oh my gosh. And you have that aha moment because you've done the work behind the scenes. You've reached out to Level Up and Live, and you've got the implementation, and we've guided you through this process, and you've joined our mastermind group. And now you're like, I'm super clear on what it is I need to do. Guess what? Delegation becomes a small little obstacle, a small
Mhm.
little speed bump in the neighborhood road. You ever one of those speed bumps? You're like, ha, that was a piece of cake speed bump. Then you go over the speed bumps that are like super big
Yeah.
that you better slow down.
Might need to take that into the mechanic after that one.
The small speed bumps that they become small. You've literally lowered these speed bumps
Yeah.
because you have a clear path of where you're wanting to go. Oh, I need to remove myself. Okay, that means I need to practice in the next 6 months on delegation. How do I delegate? Trying to do that by yourself is very tough and very challenging.
Yeah.
And so the reason I say that, the reason I'm qualified to say that is because I've been that guy, just like you were that guy with trying to delegate that. You're like, oh, well, these guys didn't execute like I would have. So
Hmm.
they were at 25% of what should have got done. Your job as a leader now for the next 6 months is to get them from 25% to 50% on executing delegation.
Yeah.
And then it just compounds and snowballs. That's how you remove yourself. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah, man, that's really beautiful, man, and I hope that's landing with the audience. And you could take that almost into any area of your life, to be honest. But it's not optional in business if you want to continue or to not be burnt out, or if you want to have a vacation or go somewhere and not have that fear, that stress. Again, quality of your life. Like you said, what does all this do for you? Right? Like, what is the business going to do for you? And if these things are not being looked at, those skills being learned, and you remove yourself, then it never will do that thing. And which means you'll never have the life that you want to live. And if it hasn't happened yet, and you're not extremely clear that you're already on the path, it's not going to happen. Like, you could just say right now, it will never happen if you are not currently on the trajectory of knowing what the business is going to do for you. You have to have that come to this realization, that moment where you can tell the difference. You can
Yes.
tell, I was doing it like this. That was going to be this forever. This miserable emails on a vacation, like, that is not acceptable. It's just not. No one in their right mind says, I want to do calls. You might want to do the calls and the emails if you love it, when you don't have to, like when you're at work. But if it's when you don't want to be doing those things and you have to, that's not going to work. So yeah, there's going to be that special moment where you're like, okay, I'm now on this path, and it might take a little time to get up to speed, like you said, next 6 months to up that skill from 25 to 50%. But at least you're on the path. It's only a matter of time now until that business is doing what you want it to do for you. I guess there's a lot of fear behind that. Like, you've probably experienced that with a lot of your coaches. Like, what did they say to that when they hear it? Because they're not familiar, not used to this. Like, what does it look like when they start implementing? What do they come to you back and say, or what are they experiencing when they do it?
I think it's a lot of not only reflecting and being mindful on themselves in approaching in how they execute and how they show up as a leader for their team, for their
Mm,
members. Because from my experiences, like when you try to go and talk to somebody, and if whatever pops up, imposter syndrome or lack of experience. And the reason I'm able to speak on this is because I've had dozens, hundreds of conversations. I've
mm,
trial and error, mistakes, failures. But here's the key ingredient. All that happened, and the difference maker is I just took action in having the conversations and sharing my vulnerabilities and struggles. Like, hey, look, and I would share this with a coachee, and I would say, hey, look, have the conversation. It's not going to be perfect. You may have to record it. You may have to ask for feedback right after you have the conversation, but have the conversation. Because a
yeah,
lot of times we don't even, like you said, fear of having the conversation,
yeah,
fear of releasing the reins and losing control in that department, service, sales, whatever it may be, and delegating that task. I'm not
yeah.
saying you have to sit here and let go of your baby. Here recently, I know a coachee that is running a multi-million-dollar company, and he enjoys sales. So guess what? He's still selling.
Mm,
He's delegating and releasing the reins in these other finance department and other areas of his business. And the last thing that he'll do is replace himself with sales. And here's why. And I said, look, you don't ever have to remove yourself from sales. Sales is sales. What else? What does sales mean? Right?
Mm.
Well, think about it for a second. You're not just selling this product. What are you selling as a leader? You're
Yeah.
selling the vision. You're selling the core values. You're selling the mission. And you put that on repeat. Then on top of that, you're selling the systems. You see?
Dude, that's gold. What you just said right there, man. Back that up if you're listening. That was a awesome thing you just said. I never heard that. Never heard that said before, because every business owner, if you think about it, is everyone is in sales. Everyone. You have to sell your children on eating healthy food. You have to, sell yourself on working out, right? Everything is sales. Everyone has to have a convincing conversation, whether it's with someone else or with yourself in any area. But I never heard it like that. Like, man, if you love sales and you're in business, if you're a business owner, you're definitely in sales. But yeah, you're the ultimate sale is selling the vision and having other people being able to fit their vision within that. That was very cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'll leave. I know we're wrapping things up, but I want to leave the listeners and audience like, okay, cool. Hey, I hear you, and totally the message has landed. And one of the things I've learned this from, I've done this to a certain degree, but it's a three step phase by Dan Martell. Buy Back Your Time, and he talks about how you want to audit your time. So
Mm.
where are you spending your time? It's emails and phone calls. Okay, cool. Well, how many hours in the day are you spending emailing and phone calling or whatever it may be in any department? And so you audit that throughout the day from the moment you go to the office and to the moment you leave. And so you audit your entire day. And then you think, okay, well, then the step two is after auditing your day for 30 days, right? Then you transfer. And so AKA delegation, you come up with a delegation plan. So you identify the task that you just audited. You're like, oh, I'm emailing and phone calling 8 hours a day and it's draining my energy. So you identify that task because you just did an audit, and now it's time to outsource or assign a team member if you have a team member, or if you don't, then it's time to look for a team member. Maybe it's a virtual assistant, or maybe it's bringing on somebody part-time,
Mm.
right? Because now you're going to transfer that task to that person. And then the last one is going to be fill. Now, what do you fill your time? That you're not having to do 6 to 7 hours of email. So guess what you get to spend your time on now? Working on the business in that percentage, working
Mm.
on yourself, working on improving your sales skills, marketing skills, branding skills, leadership skills. You're not having to do the tasks that drain your energy. So audit your time, transfer it, and fill it with more production filled return on investment during your day that fills your tank, fills your energy versus depletes it.
That's beautiful, man. And that's how you can enjoy what it is that you do and not end up being that present and hating it.
Bingo. Nailed it. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it means to, by shifting the mindset, understanding that, oh, this is what I want my business to stand for, look like, and do for my life. And then, oh, I just need to audit my day, pick my head above sand, transfer it, delegate it, hone in on those skill sets, and then fill my time with the things that I want to enjoy doing by impacting and serving the people that are on my team, my community, and actually live the life that I want to live and how I want to live it.
Mm.
I mean, like, come on,
Or the other version of you is keep doing exactly what you're
or keep
doing.
doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
And you
mindset
know what?
shift.
Everybody has to go through that at some point. Any successful business, it's
Yep,
like it's
absolutely.
a rite of passage. I think you just have to go. You have to go through that. You have to experience the what you don't want to go search for what you do want, and then these are answers to a lot of those questions that you might
Yeah,
have. So
yeah, and I think that's just going to be that's the endurance of entrepreneurship and business,
that's huge.
because
We need an episode on that right there. The endurance.
endurance.
It's so easy to burn out and give up right before it's something's about to happen that could keep you going.
Yes.
And just like exercise, like you need that
Yeah.
endurance to push through. And once you have it,
Yep.
man, it will really push you through. Like, and I've witnessed you have that endurance. That's why you've been in business for it's going on a decade, right?
Decade.
The insurance
Yep.
agency is about to be 10 years, and the other businesses you've had, you knew what it took, because once you know what endurance is, you're like, aha, keep that
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Well, because it has to be sustainable. It has to be. It has to be the long-term aspect of it, because short-term pain, I experienced that pain in that 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And now which is long-term, it's paying it forward on the long-term. Oh, okay. Well, things are getting a little bit more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm focusing on the things that I want to focus on and do. And so, and putting the right people in the right place. And as far as that delegation, removing myself from the business and empowering the people that work within the company. And I'll share this quick story right before we leave. There's a lot of people in the business that I look at. I've shifted from employees, team members. I'm a big servant leader. Like, I want to serve and impact. How do we get you to where you want to top And
Mm.
so I look at a lot of the individuals on my team as entrepreneurs, right? And so here recently, one of my top agents loves to travel. I mean, he probably travels more than me. We just made a
Wow.
joke about it. He probably travels more than me.
That's a
Here
lot.
recently went off to 2 weeks or a week of Turks and Caicos, and forward think backwards plan. He put all the processes and systems in place, got with his team members, and everything plugged away. Well, as you know, if you're a business owner listening to this, you go away for a week. That's the ultimate test. Go away for a week. Away for 2 weeks. Go away for a month. That's the best way to find out where the problems lie, where the issues lie, right? It's an intentionality, and you have to do it. And so I love when these guys do this, when they take off, because we'll always find the issues. And we did. We found 2 issues, right? 2 issues. 4 years ago, it would have been 15 issues. But 2
Wow.
issues? Okay, cool. We scheduled a Google Meet. We had a little coaching session with 3 of our leadership team members, and we were able to spot immediately within 5 or 10 minutes on exactly what had happened. And one of the things that is exactly what we're talking about. Well, he's an entrepreneur. He's trying to remove himself, right, from having to do all the emails, the phone calls, the systems, the process, the sales. Because, who am I just to live my own life? I want to teach my team members how to do that. And it
Yeah.
can be done. You believe it, you can achieve it. So this individual, he was like, oh, it had that aha moment, because what had happened is that something was missed on the back end, and it was missed because he didn't project that he was going to be leaving for a week. So in our CRM system, client relationship management system, he didn't get with the service department team members to say, hey, is there any reminders popping up in 4 days when I'm out of town, because I'm going to be no email, no phone call? Is there
Mm.
anything popping up that needs to be brought to my attention right now? If he would have done that, he would have been able to point it out, and then we wouldn't have been able to have the issue or the problem or the hiccup and cause frustration in the team. So now when he goes on vacation for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it may be, guess what he's going to do? Forward think, backwards plan. He's going to get with the service department 3 weeks out in advance. You got anything popping up for me? No. Great. Check that off the box. Boom, shakalaka.
I just
Moving
want to
on.
highlight something. You're the business owner. Your guy, your entrepreneur,
Yeah.
is running your business like he's the owner.
Yeah. 100%.
The employee is getting to take time off like an owner.
Yeah.
And he's where else is he ever going to go? There's no one that's ever going to be able to do that. Like, no one could ever offer him. He's in paradise, right? Like, I was thinking about it. He literally could work from home if he found someone to do what he's doing right now. You have like 10 guys all at home because you've built it this way, and everybody's everyone's doing their thing. So I think if business owners listening to this and they're like, well, I can't get myself out, well, just rewind that back and listen. Like, Sean has someone in his business that got himself out. That's how he's running it. So if a manager that's running the show can get themselves out, well, then you can as a business owner too, just like Sean has, and teaching his people to do it too, which I think is just fantastic. You hadn't told me that before. I didn't know that's the kind of agreement you had with your employee, your manager, that's able to do that. And listen, I just hear the freedom that he has to do that. Like, if he solves his own problems, he can go do what he wants, right? And you've set him
That's
up to
right.
do that. And of course, he comes back and takes his everything very seriously and does an excellent job. But that's super cool, man. That's like a vision for business owners to hear, that structure. Everybody wants that person.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And that person wants to be that person too. You just got to find them and give them the space to play. So that was really cool that you said that, man.
Absolutely, man. And so if anybody's listening to this and they're like, yes, I need help, I always put the number on there. Text us 936-788-4295 and put whatever you want. We're always, DM us on social media, subscribe on YouTube, and drop us in the comments. Send us a DM on, hey, what you got out of this message, what you got out of this podcast episode, or what, if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, what challenges are you facing? Because we're always looking for topics and themes to try to provide as much value as possible for our audience and listeners. Because at the end of the day, what we're about here at Level Up and Live is we're doing the implementation behind the scenes. So the people that are leaning in, that are texting us, that are messaging us, that are actually putting in the work behind the scenes, taking the action, they're the ones that are seeing progress. They're the ones that are working on their business and not in their business and being a prisoner to the business. So that's your competitors out there leaning in. Don't be that guy. We're trying to help you avoid the failure like I was. Drop that ego, drop that pride. You know who I'm talking about, and reach out to us. Outside of that, make sure you like and subscribe, share it with a business owner, entrepreneur. Level Up and Live.
Level up and live.